Well, good morning. My name's Dave Gliebe, and I'm going to show you a little bit about flipping on the Delta. This is springtime. It's actually the first part of May, so the fish are spawning, pre-spawn, and post-spawn. So there's several different patterns here. I've got some great sponsors. I've got Mercury Outboards, I've got Bass Cat Boats, I have keeper worms, rod stringer jigs, and spinnerbaits. And I'm trying to hold the boat here in the wind. It's blowing about 35 miles an hour. So it's kind of hard to fish in those kind of conditions, but the Delta, you can always get out of the wind just because of all the different directions it goes. Right here we got 14-mile slough. You're looking at Mount Diablo over there. The wind's coming right at us from 25 to 35 miles an hour. Doesn't take too much to hold it here because you got the levee helping to block the wind. But it's cold up here above the levee. Right now we're going to try flipping a Cinco. This is one of the most popular baits on the Delta. In fact, in many places. We've got a lot of fish in the lakes also on these. And the other lure that I'm going to use is a rod strainer jig. It's 1/4 ounce. Probably should have used a heavier one in this wind to control it, but I think I can get close enough where I don't get too much wind damage in my casts. And this is brown and pumpkin green with the pumpkin green trailer. Got a real good weed guard and awesome 4-aught hook or 5-aught hook. Plus it's got rattles in it. Got rattles on the back. Of course, I'm missing one because it got ate a couple days ago. So here we go. So what are we going to target here? It's pretty much high tide. It hasn't started out yet. So the fish will probably be suspended. So I'm going to start with the Cinco. I'm going to first target these thin tulies because the fish will suspend in these thin tulies. You don't want to hit a solid wall. That's better on an outgoing tide after it's fallen a bit. So we just flip it in the tulies and let it sink. Don't always feel a hit, but you will just feel a resistance when you go to move it when it stops sinking. It's kind of hard to see your line twitch when it's so windy. Calm conditions are a little better. Flip into this little outside point of thin tulies. No bite there, so I'll work my way in a little bit. Flipping in a little closer to the shoreline. Still no bite, but since it's high tide, they may be on the bank. I'll keep working my way in. No bite there. So now I'll try a little pocket between two little points. See what happens. Still no bite. I'll try the next little point. You just let the Cinco just sink. Don't put any resistance against it. And there we go. We got one. Nope. It's a little one, but we got a fish. See, that fish just picked it up and ran at the boat with it. It's not a tournament fish, but it's fun to catch them. Next we'll try the rod strainer jig, see if that lure's working. Most of the time I prefer using the jig on an outgoing tide because it's resembling a crawdad. They're molting this time of year. When they do, they turn green. That's why I'm using an all green jig. Other times of the year they'll be black and red, brown and orange. So we caught him in a little pocket between 2 points. So let's try that again on another little pocket next door. Hard to flip in this wind. Hard to do anything. Now we'll try this point next door. Points are always good anywhere you go. It doesn't matter if it's a tule point, a weed point, a dirt bank point, a rock point, anything that makes a point. Even cover on the surface of the water that makes a point. A point is a point. Now this stretch of tules we have a lot of thin tules. If you forget about the thin tules and look at the wall behind them, it's still making a little cove, but you got all this good thin tules in the cove which bass can suspend in. You really have to study the tules and notice where you catch fish so you can be more efficient with your time and knowing where to throw it. Here we got a pretty solid wall of tules. We got a real nice shade pocket in there. So we'll put the jig right in there. I don't leave it there too long, just maybe 5 seconds. No bite, I just keep moving. Now we'll try a little point here next to it. Nothing there. Now we'll go to this next point. And I'm always ready. I got the reel engaged. I try to follow the lure down without putting any resistance on it. That way you get more of a vertical fall, which looks more natural. You know, as far as feeling the bites, I don't really expect to feel a fish hit it. What I do is I just watch the line sink. If it stops sinking, I immediately check it just by lifting the rod a little bit. If I've got some tension on there, I set the hook. You only feel about maybe, I'd say 10 or 15% of your hits. The rest of them grab it and you don't even know it until you go to lift the rod. So you always got to be on the ball. One of my other sponsors is Galaxy Marine, who takes care of my boats. They do an excellent job. They have a great staff there. This particular boat I'm in is the new P4 for 2004. It's 19 and a half feet long. It's a deep V all the way to the back. It rides absolutely awesome. And it's still fast. And it's very stable when you're fishing. You have very little movement when people are moving around. Now we get to a section that we got no toolies. So I'm going to get out a spinnerbait just to make it easier to cover the water. Throw it in close to that netted toolie. And just slow roll it out. Undoubtedly you've got weeds all along here, so fish will suspend on those weeds also. And it's better not to just throw into the bank, but in order to cover the water better, you want to throw it parallel with the bank. There's one, right there, and he took my spinner blade off my spinner bait. That's a tough fish. These aren't monster right now, but they're fun. Here we go. Took off the blade. That fish is mean. Guess I'll have to put another one on. Well, here we are on a different type of bank. It's got a lot of trees on it. There's some section of open shoreline, and there's all these trees. And fish are, with this high tide, are probably way back in there on the bank. So it's kind of hard to get in there. When it's not too windy, I can usually get it in there pretty good. It's a little harder when it's windy. But I don't worry about getting the fish out because I use 65-pound Power Pro. So even if I do hook him, I can get the boat in there somehow and get that fish. Even if he's hung up in there. He's not going to get away. So we're going to try this jig again. See if we can get it underneath that tree. Oh, got a little bit high on that one. Catching trees all right. There we go. Skipped it right in there. See, there's still a lot of water back in those trees, so fish could be anywhere back there. Sometimes they do suspend, just like in those toolies, they'll suspend in these limbs. So you just flip it right in that outside limb there. Just watch it fall. Most of the time, since they're suspended, you don't have to worry about it getting to the bottom because they're going to grab that bait before it gets there. As you can see, there's a lot of water back here. There's a nice opening where we can get to the bank. See if anybody's home. Make a couple of casts in here. I tell you what, this is really a lot of fun in this wind. Here we go, an open piece of bank. Let's see if anybody's home. It doesn't look like it. Now I got a little snag. Here's a good way to get a snag out where you have control of your rod tip so you don't break your tip. Just get close enough where you can reach it. Just stick your finger out and hold the tension in against the line and slide your pole down the line. And just push the lure right off. Another sponsor I have is Super Pork. I usually use pork in the pre-spawn before they start spawning when it's still on the cool side. And then again in the fall and in the winter. But when the water gets hot like this, it's in the 70s. I generally use plastic. They seem to react to it better. Super Pork has a new pork out that's called the Slinky. It's 6.5 inches long, and I'll tell you what, it worked pretty good. I caught 2 8s, a 933, and an 11 on it, and the fish just gobbled it. I mean, they like swallowed it. I mean, it was unbelievable. One thing that's unique about Super Pork is that it's all fat. There's no skin on it, so it floats like a cork. So when that jig sits on the bottom, that pork just sits straight up. They don't seem to be in this wood at all. Place-wise, not yet. When you got a lot of this shoreline that looks all the same, it's kind of hard to tell where you might catch a fish. without knowing what's underneath. So the best time to check the bank out like this is at a minus tide, to where you can see if there's any breaks along here or patches of weeds which don't show right now. That'll hold the fish. Something different other than the wood. But today we got a high tide, so I'm just trying to guess. I missed that one. I saw the line twitch, but he wasn't there. Now I've got a guide service running right now. And what I do is I take people out and teach them how to catch black bass under all conditions. Usually spend the day working on whatever they need to learn. Different techniques, how to read the cover, how to pattern the fish, how to work your baits, and selecting colors. Colors are real important. Everything can be learned. Generally, I do not fish on a guide trip unless the clients insist I do. Which most of the time they want me to fish too. They like to watch, see what I do. Most of the guide trips I've had out here on the Delta have been really successful for the clients. I've had some on the lakes. Last one I had was on Lake Berryessa. My clients didn't have any tackle. They wanted to catch smallmouth. So I rigged up a couple of spinning rods for them. I've got a lure I use. It's a keeper reaper. It's a small reaper. And we split shotted on Berryessa till noon, and then the wind came up like 25 miles an hour out of nowhere. It kind of blew us off the water, but we'd already caught 35 smallmouth, 25 largemouth, and 10 spotted bass. We had one heck of a day. Well, this doesn't seem to be working too good at this high tide with a jig. Jig works actually better most of the time on an outgoing tide because the crawdads have to move off the bank to keep up with the water. And the fish will wait on the first little break that's off the bank, wait for them to come out there. Sometimes they're kind of lazy. right now, it's like the Syncos and the spinnerbaits are going to work better. So we'll try this spinnerbait now. My number one lure is the rod strainer jig. I've caught more big fish on that than anything. It all started back in 1974. The first time I ever tried a jig. First day I ever fished a jig. And I ended up catching a 32-pound 5-fish limit out of Comanche. Ever since then, it's been my main lure. I know it catches big fish. Chartreuse is an excellent color in this water color that we have here. You can see down about 2 feet. Fish are not cooperating too well today, or I'm just not on the right kind of bank. This is a north bank right here. The bank we caught the other fish on was a west bank. That's another way to pattern these fish is fish all 4 banks, north, south, east, west, to determine which banks they're holding on. If they're just holding on a west bank, well then, that's all you want to fish is west bank for that day. Now this has been mostly trees, but here we got kind of a dirt bank with just some tulies on it, so it's different. Another thing you look for is something different on the shoreline. Whether it's a log or a stretch of tulies and a bunch of wood, or one log on a rock bank, or, you know, something different. That's where your biggest fish are caught. Always on the oddball stuff. Got no bites on this bank with the spinnerbait. Let's try Cinco again. I found that they either hit the Cinco on the first drop or after you've moved it once or twice. Seems like after that you won't get any bites on it, so it's actually a pretty fast bait to fish. So I don't waste too much time working it back to the boat. I just throw it at the target. Most of the time they'll hit it right on the first fall like that. Another little one, but he's sure healthy looking, nice and fat. I'm gonna go back and try that jig again. See if I can catch a bigger fish on this. Here's another stretch on this tree line bank, where we just have some tulies and a dirt bank. So we'll see if that pattern holds up. Try this jig again. By the way, this is what I used in the Ever Start last week, and except for a couple of bad choices, I ended up making the top 20 cut and finished 15th. Well, we all make bad decisions, and sometimes we make good ones. Make a good one and you win. Steve Thomas kind of showed me how to flip. I used to use a 5-foot rod and just underhand pitch a jig. I only used 12-pound line, and I broke off a lot of fish. I went fishing with him one day before I went back east, and he flipped and I pitched. He didn't lose any fish. I broke off 3 or 4. And he outfished me, so I thought, well, that's a pretty good looking method. Good for tournament fishing. Gives you some better odds. So when I went back east, I used it in 2 out of the first 3 tournaments, and I won all 3. 2 of them I flipped. One was at Okeechobee, one was at Toledo Bend. And at Sam Rayburn, Texas, I fished a jig also, but I fished a structure about 15 feet deep. Had some really great weights. I had 95 pounds. 3 ounces at Okeechobee, flipping jigs in the water hyacinths. Sam Rayburn, I fished structure in about 15 feet of water and had 57 pounds for 13 fish. In Toledo Bend, I had 20 fish for 82 pounds. Flipping in dead grass that got packed up in hardwood trees. This bank is not looking too good. So let's go try another bank that's got some rocks on it. We fished tulies, we fished wood. Let's go try some rocks. Here again, we want to go parallel to the bank to keep the bait in the strike zone. We'll try something a little slower. Try that jig again. You get a flipping stick that's too soft, and you will lose fish because you don't get the hook set in them. They grab the head of that jig, and it's really, really hard to move it when they've got a good bite on it. When you have a rod this stiff, you generally can move it to where you can get the hook in the fish. Oh, missed that one. Spit it out before I jerked. Try that again. One more try. Rocks are generally pretty good at high tide. But you want to make sure at a minus tide that the rocks go all the way to the bottom of the slough, because if they don't, then they're not generally any good. They look good, but the fish don't seem to hold on them unless they go to the bottom of the slough. Now, if you miss a fish like that on a jig or any lure, you can usually get them to hit again with a drop shot. It's probably easier to use a drop shot on spinning tackle, but I find it works pretty good on bait casting. Here I have 14-pound test. Right here I'm using a brown and green worm. You just throw it to the bank and shake it while you're dragging it slightly. Oh, I missed him again. Must be a bluegill. It's amazing this drop shot works so well here. I used it the first time last summer. My first 3 fish were 10-4, 7.5, and a 5. And that was just with a little 4-inch worm. And I was only using 8-pound test line. In fact, I caught the biggest one out of a lay-down tree. It took me about 15 minutes, but I caught it. Oh, missed him again. Gotta be a bluegill. Not eating that thing. But you never know. Sometimes they're kind of finicky. Give them a little more time. Don't set the hook too soon. There he is. Oh, he dropped it. It's got to be a bluegill. It's mostly a habit that you set the hook when you get bit. But with drop shotting, it seems to work better if you don't jerk, but just start cranking. And you'll land more fish than you will if you set the hook. We'll try another rock bank that the current has got it cut out to where it's just 10 feet deep, 5 feet off the rocks. We'll see what happens there. Usually I found the best length between your sinker and your hook is usually about 8 inches to 16 inches for largemouth. If you're fishing for spotted bass in the lakes, you got to check to see how far off the bottom the bait is. Sometimes you want it up 3 feet. You just got to keep it in the zone that the fish are at. Usually they're fairly close to the bottom in the delta. So I use a short separation between the hook and the sinker. There we go. There's one. Looks like they want a really slow sinking bait. Another giant delta bass. There's a big fish. Oh, there we go. There's a good spinnerbait fish on this flat thing. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. There we go. There's the sweetheart. Hasn't spawned yet. Like I was saying, there's fresh spawn, and spawning. Flat wow. It's actually a baby duck. Wow, that's a pretty fish. The fish will weigh about 8 pounds. Beautiful. Well, I gotta let it go so she can grow up a little bit more.